Absolutely. And I just want to say that I think that's a national challenge.
Mhm.
I think there has been no community that has not been impacted by the economy.
Mhm.
And we know there's been foreclosure, we know the housing collapse, and so you have a working class community and you have people who come here because they want a safe community for their children, to raise their children, and then they have to work one or two jobs to make that happen. And so the resources are very stretched. And I think that's a challenge that anyone in America can relate to.
Mhm.
Now, tell me about some of your programs. What are you doing here?
Well, first off, it's not what I'm doing. I think in a big way, what, in my view, separates Tahquitz, I think, from a lot of the schools out there. Number one, I'm very proud. Our similar schools ranking, when you look at the students and community that we serve across the state, is at a 9, which is saying that apples for apples, the teachers, the parents, the faculty, the support staff are doing a great job at preparing our kids. Obviously, there's a lot of work that needs to get done. But from a programmatical sense, coming into Tahquitz High School, Sue had it very tough when she opened up Tahquitz High School. Not only did she have to begin to put the structures and things in place, but literally from a facility standpoint, she operated as a construction manager, I would argue, for the first couple of years as well. Coming in, my job was to build on what she had set in place and then really begin a conscious and deliberate effort at getting the community consciously involved in the academic, social, political, curriculum, instruction, assessment, all of the different things that come into running a comprehensive high school. It became very clear to me as we put ourselves out there that this community wanted to be involved. And up to that point, there were not ways that they could naturally do that. So the first priority, number one, was to get out there and get a sense of, okay, what is it that you would like to see preserved? What is it that you would like to see changed? And the big question that I think we gained a lot of good data from was, look, if you were me and you were sitting in the principal's seat, what would your 3 highest priorities be? What would you do? And unequivocally across the board, it was get the parents involved, get the students connected to the school, and give the teachers an opportunity to come together. And so I think over the last 2 years, everything that we have done has deliberately built on what is our major strategic plan, which is excellence in every classroom, shared leadership opportunities for all stakeholders, and number 3 was to be able to build explicit structures in place to support organizational capacity and people's ability to be able to problem solve in very natural ways. So we've done a lot to funnel things in that direction. This year, especially with the leadership of the district, we literally lead the district in what is referred to as data teaming. And what data team refers to is when you look at all 4 of the major core right now, which are science, social science, English, and math, being able to get teachers to have time to come in and sit down and literally talk about, okay, this is where our kids are at. This is what we know they need to know. What are the best ways of getting the kids there? And once we establish what we want the kids to know, what strategies do we believe are going to get the kids there so that they can actually not just master the standard, but also master the skill set within the standard that we're looking for, as you referenced earlier, to this transition to the Common Core. It's not just mastering standards, it's mastering skill sets. How do I problem solve and critically think? How do I deal with agility and adaptability? How am I able to work within a group dynamic to be able to come up with an answer at the end, but also embrace the process along and how I get there, and getting the kid to take more ownership in their learning. Data teams have allowed us to come together in ways that we never have before here at Tahquitz, and everything that we're doing right now, from assessment, curriculum, and instruction, has now all been fully aligned to the California Common Core, which is coming down here in 2014. So very excited. Would love to say, hey, you know, I held the flag up high enough, but I am a product of phenomenal assistant principals and a very talented teaching staff.
Wonderful. Let's talk a little bit about your book, Mastering the Principalship from Transition to Tenure, A Practitioner's Guide to Success in the First Year. Sounds like a great title.
This really is an extension of my dissertation work that I did about 4 years ago, and it was on the first 90 days of a principalship. And there's tons of literature out there that will show you, hey, these are certain things that you can do when you take the position, and how you can make your organization grow. But very little research dealt with, in that critical first 90 days, what are successful principals doing? And I had the opportunity to interview some of the top principals throughout the state of California, the California League of Middle Schools and High Schools, and ask them, what were specific things did you engage in those first 90 days to build alliances, to build some of those small wins, to get the teacher buy-in, to align your efforts with the district, and how did you go about doing that? So the title's kind of a misnomer, because when it says mastering the principalship, by no means am I assuming that I have mastered the principalship. What I have learned is I've learned enough to know that I know very little.
Well, you've learned from the masters, so I think there's something to be said about
absolutely
sitting at the foot of the masters and having them to share their secrets with you.
Yeah, it's much different, I think. This is my 8th year in administration, and when I conducted the study, I was an assistant principal, so I was keenly aware of what they were saying. But now, having sat in this position, it's kind of ironic that you kind of arrive at this paradox that if you really want to have great results at your site and you want to get stakeholder buy-in, whether it's your parents, your teachers, your students, you really have got to hand that power over and put the power in the hands of the change agents that are out there on the front line. And everybody in this room, you and I both know that, teaching is the ultimate act in vulnerability. I mean, every day your personal and professional lives merge in front of kids.
Absolutely.
And No Child Left Behind has had such a dramatic impact on making teaching is more prescriptive.
Yes.
You need to do it this way, the students need to learn this particular way, etc. And getting them, thankfully now with the Common Core that's coming, getting them to kind of go, wait a minute here, we need you back at the table.
Right.
What values brought you here in the first place?
Absolutely.
And what do you believe, having been out there, if we can do A, B, and C to ultimately get our students where they want to be and build this community and culture that we aspire to, how do you think we need to get there? And then empowering them to make that happen. So the role up here, if anything, is more of just support when I need to support, kind of twist a little bit on the accountability end when I need to hold those accountable, and do everything I can to make sure that these folks out here have everything they need to move forward.
Okay, I want to go back a little bit because I think you've hit on some very important points, and I want to clarify those points. The shared power, which I believe is crucial for the 21st century, for shifting from being the sage on the stage to the guide on the side. Talk about that a little bit and how that plays out here at Tahquitz High.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the interesting things two things I learned, I think, going through. The first one is that the imposter phenomenon. I think some of the worst preparation you could ever have to being a principal at a comprehensive high school would be to be an assistant principal at a high school, because the role is so limited. Either you're stuck with master scheduling, or you're stuck with facilities and safety, etc. So the more I read, the more I learned that people that took this position for the first time, it's almost as if you're faking it till you make it. And you learn real quick that there isn't any single decision in education that ever needs to be made at that minute. And it really begins to speak to getting on the phone and calling those that have been there, those that have done that. And I think building that capacity around yourself to, number one, acknowledge that you don't have all the answers. Number two, I know for myself, I am surrounded by people a heck of a lot more mindful and bright than I am. So if I have a curriculum issue, I can lean on folks within the curriculum ranks that have had a lot more experience than me at this site and put them in a position to move forward. That's huge.
Yes, it is.
The other piece is, I think there's a lot of power in the words, I don't know. And I think a lot of people that get into any kind of a position of leadership, they have this notion that they have to have all the answers.
Right.
And I've learned that I think it's almost paradoxical. The more you hand over and say, you know what, let's explore that together.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's
find out.
There you go.
Let's find out.
There's more than one way
Yes.
to get from point A to point B. And I think the moment you can begin to, I think the big issue is being able to frame issues.
Right.
When you can frame it and then look at different approaches and how different people are involved in the implementation as well, those that are going to be impacted.
Yes.
And you can begin to look at things like that, bring your folks into problem solve and decision make around that. I think then you are going to be moving the organization to a point where it can ultimately become a self-cleaning oven.